Good morning F11 members, and welcome to the Fundamentals of Post-Production Video Tutorials Part 2 for issue 44, September 2015. What I'd like to do with you this morning is look at this picture that I shot just yesterday morning at dawn, just down the road, a very typical scene of where we live here on the Somerset Dorset border. Layer of mist lying there in amongst the trees, a long lens perspective shot with the 100 to 400 millimeter lens, and I have a focal length of around about 270 millimeters there, really flattening the perspective. I really like that perspective for landscapes sometimes. And a lane winding into the frame there, and really quite pleased with it, and quite sort of subtle muted lighting, but I think it works. But I had to really box clever with my composition. There was annoying detail really right round the edges of the frame here, and you can see, looking at this picture here, I've got a cable right across the bottom of the frame there. I didn't want to go in tighter there because I would have lost this gate here in the left of the frame, which I think is really quite a useful feature, quite important. There's actually a bird there perched on the gate there. And I've got this sort of white taping in this field, which I find very distracting. And if I zoom in now on this picture, you'll see in amongst the trees there, I've got this electrical pylon. I've got some annoying cables and power cables and lines, all of which need to be taken out. And clever as the technology of Photoshop is, there's no quick, easy way to do that. There's a fair bit of skill and time involved in removing such distractions. So that's what we're going to do now. The first thing I'm going to do is move the area that we're looking at down to the bottom right hand corner of the image and endeavour to take out this power cable here. So I'm going to zoom in even closer. That's at 50% magnification. Control and plus on the keyboard zooms me in to 100%, and then move the navigator window down to the right hand corner. What is the best way of removing this cable? Well, a really handy tool is of course the Contentaware healing tool, which I've clicked on here, and I've made up here it says Contentaware. So I'm now going to experiment with using that, and I use my square bracket key to adjust the size of my brush. I might need a brush just a bit bigger than the edge of the cable. Now I know we've done this before, but actually taking out such things as this does require a bit of messing around with various different tools to get the best effect. If I just now swipe along the length of the cable with my Contentaware brush like this, it does a pretty good job of removing the cable. But if you look closely, I can see a definite line across there, whereby you can see where it's been operating. And if I zoom out again, even at a normal magnification down here, I think you can see the effect of the Contentaware tool. So we're going to need to fine-tune that, and I'm going to do that by just disrupting some of the repetition of pattern that we've got there. So if I now go to the cloning tool here, and now adjust the size of my brush, and I'm just going to take the odd sample, or if I hit Alt, that's where I'm selecting from, and now if I move that around here, it's sampling from the area just above where the cable was. And I don't want to do it for all the length of the area we're working on, but just to break up the pattern somewhat, so that where the Contentaware tool has been working is not so apparent. And I need to keep sampling from different areas as well, just to make sure there's none of that telltale repetition of pattern, which is the giveaway so often. And I think now, if we look at what we've got there, if I zoom back out to normal viewing distance, you can see that it's quite a believable, you wouldn't know that anything had been there. So that's the way I work really with this kind of detail, and I'm going to carry on taking out that cable with the same technique here. First, use Contentaware healing brush, and then secondly come along with the clone tool to just tidy it all up. So there you go, that's done that. But as you can see, there's that dark line across there. So now if I go again to my cloning tool there, and now I'm going to take areas from up here and drop them in. Random different areas cloned to break up the repetition of pattern is the way ahead, so that that dark line becomes less of an issue. I wish there was a quick way of doing this, but there isn't. It's time-consuming cables, and actually I have to say that I don't do it. Wendy is the one who is the real maestro at this. But I think you get the idea there. That cable has gone quite nicely. So now I'm going to move on to trying to take out this area here, this white tape, which I find really quite distracting. And again, I'm going to go and use the Contentaware healing brush. It's this one there. Click on that. So here I am, and I'm back with the Contentaware tool. Now I'm using a graphics tablet here, which I can alter the size of my brush here with, of course, the square brackets key, but I can also alter the width of the brush by pressure. So we have quite a narrow line here that I want to take out, but it gets thicker as I move this way, and actually as I increase the pressure you can see the actual brush size increasing. So I find that really quite useful for this kind of work. Of course it's possible to do this with a normal mouse, but I've found I've got so used to using a graphics tablet that I really miss it when it's not available. I really struggle doing this with a normal mouse. That's doing a really good job there in this particular case, and I'm quite happy with that. But where we have this post coming into play, that's giving me more problems. So what I'm going to do is just experiment, of course, with seeing how the Contentaware brush will deal with it. And now I'm going to go to and refine that by going back to my my cloning tool here. Come down on my brush size here, and then just select Alt, click on that, and then click on the area that I want to clone to, just to fine-tune that. You can see how this is going to be quite a job taking out this tape, and where we have a problem is where the tape hits this greenery here. And now if I just use the Contentaware brush here, come down on my tool size, you can see, let's see what a job does. It leaves a line through those leaves there. That's not good enough. That will pick up and caused me dissatisfaction. So I'm going to go back and fine-tune that again using the cloning tool here. Quite tricky this, and what I need to do is just sample from there on the leaf and just experiment with drawing in a little bit of detail there. Now I'm looking at this at 200%, which is way more than I would do normally. Normally look at 100%. At 100% that's really quite acceptable. If I come out to normal viewing distance, then I can't see any evidence that that tape was there. But I'm coming up to an area here which really is going to get quite complex, and that's where the tape goes behind this leaf here. So let's see what we can do with this. Again, I'm going to use the Contentaware tool to start with and just take out the bits either side, and now I'm going to go in even tighter, zooming into 300% here, and I'm going to switch to the healing brush, not the healing brush, the clone tool here, and come right down on my brush size and select from this area here. I'm almost painting by pixel here. Cables are, power cables and the like, are something, when they're against sort of detailed backgrounds like this, some of the most difficult things to deal with. Time consuming, but of course worth it, because this picture with these cables in would just not work, be so distracting. So I'm now going to just clone this bit of branch. You see I've got a gap there. I'm going to need to clone from, maybe let's try up here, click on that, just put in a bit of an edge there. That works pretty well. So I think you can see how this kind of meticulous work can deal with these sort of obstructions. Coming out now there, looking at that section of the image, you wouldn't know that that tape had ever been there. So I haven't got time to do all of these cables with you now, but I think hopefully you get the idea of the way I work. And now what I'm going to do, in the immortal words of Blue Peter, here's one I made earlier. If I go to the image that the finished image with all the cables taken out, here it is, just opening up now. There's the end result. Let's just hide the navigator and move this away, and you can see what a clean image that is, with no horrible cables or the unsightly pylon there. It's really transformed the image. Go back to the other one there with that horrible detail in there and these cables running across the screen here. And that's the sort of work we need to be able to do. Okay, so that's using in tandem the Contentaware healing brush and the cloning tool to deal with power cables. That's it. We'll see you again next month, and please do send in your suggestions and comments for further content that you would like to see in these video tutorials and the online magazine at large. Thank you.